Welcome to the Collaborative. I'm your host, Sydnee Walker. Today we are joined by Orlando Magic team reporter, Kendra Douglas, a two-time Edward R. Murrow Award winner, sports anchor and reporter. Douglas spent 3 years as a sports anchor and reporter at WESH-TV News in Orlando. Prior to that, she spent nearly 2 years as a sports anchor and reporter at KSN News 3 in Wichita, Kansas. While there, she covered many teams and stories, including the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl. Douglas is a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, where she received a Bachelor of Arts in Media and Journalism. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's crazy when you tell me everything I've done. I'm like, wow, I've just been able to accomplish so much, and it's been so fun. So I'm glad I'm here and I get to talk about it.
First up, we have Sid's This or That. I'll give you a few options, and you'll tell me your preference and why. So first, we have brunch or happy hour.
Brunch. Yes, brunch, because you can also enjoy drinks while you're eating brunch. And then also I just enjoy a good brunch with friends. I love a good time. So yes, and I love to talk and have a good time with friends. So brunch for sure.
I'm all about brunch. And happy hour nowadays, it's like 2 to 5, and that's work hours. So you can't really enjoy it.
Right. Exactly.
Phone call or FaceTime?
FaceTime. I love seeing people's expressions, and I feel like I need them to see the expressions on my face when I'm relaying a message. So FaceTime always.
Same. I'm with FaceTime as well. Instagram or TikTok?
That's a hard one because isn't TikTok going away? I love TikTok because it's definitely something that keeps me like mindlessly scrolling, but so does Instagram. But I have to say Instagram. Instagram faithful to the day we die. There we go.
I hope TikTok doesn't go away. It's my favorite app.
I know. Is that nice?
And last but not least, sneakers or heels?
Ooh. It's funny. I wear heels, but I love a good sneaker. I love a cool sneaker. So I'm going to have to go with sneakers for sure.
I'm with you on that. I'm always quick to throw on my Air Force Ones. So to kick things off, let's talk about your current role. As a team reporter, you connect fans to the game in ways they may not experience otherwise. Can you share what makes reporting so impactful and how you approach storytelling beyond the court?
It all started with my very first job, which was actually doing news and sports. And because I was doing news too, I had to really develop the story, and I had to kind of really be a storyteller in that aspect. Because a lot of times when I started out in sports, it was just throw highlights together and talk about them. But in news, you have to kind of find the character of your whole story. So I will say that I've just brought with me throughout my career and going into this job too. We're kind of the voices for a lot of these players, and we're kind of the reason why you guys can hear what they have to say. Like, reporting is so important because, as viewers, you guys want to know what these guys are feeling or what they're going through or what's happening. And we're kind of the mouthpieces to kind of jumpstart that and kind of figure out how to get them to be able to relay that message back to you guys. So I feel like reporting has become so big in a sense of really understanding the player, understanding what how they go about their conversations too, because you can kind of feel whenever a player doesn't feel comfortable. So you kind of have to it's your job as a reporter too, to make them feel comfortable in answering your questions. Taking that news side that I had in the beginning of my career and bringing it to sports has really helped me in my reporting, just being able to kind of read the room in situations, be able to connect, relate, and figure out the best way to go about asking questions. So that way the players can give answers that viewers want to hear.
I love how you touched on the news aspect, because news is 24/7. Things are always going on.
Always. I think it really helped me become a better journalist in looking way beyond just what you see, because it made me have to use all my senses. And I remember I had a professor tell me that was the one thing they said was use all your senses. So like use your smell, use your sight, like use everything. So if you see, a wristband that's so different that you've never seen before on a player, ask about that, because you never know the story behind it. You never know the meaning behind it. I remember when I was covering the Olympics in Rio, there was a runner who had purple nails, and I asked her what that was for. And it turns out that it was because she was honoring her aunt or a family member who passed away. And so it was kind of like you got to relate the story a little bit more. So always news helped me out so much, but always use like your senses.
This industry often requires sacrifice. You worked in a couple different states before ending up in Florida. How did you navigate those challenges early on as you worked to build your career?
I think I just really always kept the goal in mind. I think that's really it. I think literally that was it. I told myself, if I can get through this chapter, I can do the next one. If I can get through this, I can do the next one. I relied on my faith. So that was a really big part of, getting through stuff. I relied on my family. My mom was a journalist as well. So she was in newspaper. And so she very much understands what I'm going through. And so I mean, that woman can write a book about how many times I cried. She's saying like, I should just give up. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't get it. Why not me? And I think her, my faith, and just continuing to just stay strong. I was an athlete growing up my whole life. And so I've always known just to like keep going and be competitive. And so that's always been in the forefront of my mind, is always just have that competitive nature. So I think that also helped me get through the challenges of traveling and this journey, because it's not easy going from North Carolina to then moving to Kansas. That was hard. That was a big switch. Then moving from Kansas to Florida. That was also a huge switch for me. But it's something where I just kept telling myself it'll pay off. Everything will pay off. Just continue to keep going, keep pushing yourself, because it will pay off. And I just feel so lucky and blessed to be where I'm at now.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Transitioning to your current role, you're in a unique position where you are an integral voice of the team for fans. How do you keep your reporting fresh and engaging throughout a long 82-game season?
I think really it's just about how you relay the message too. I think that's a big one. If you're constantly relaying it in a way where it doesn't sound, relaying it in a way where you can add something to it. That's what I mean. So a lot of times injuries, we're going to have injuries nonstop, but how can we add to it? This person has an injury, but this is the next thing that's happening. Or this person had a really good game. This is where they would like to continue to go. So I think it's just always finding kind of the what's next. And that's kind of keeping it fresh, because you're right. It is a grueling 82 games and a lot of the storylines will always be the same. And right now we're in a position with this team where it's like we're starting to get guys back. So our storyline still is injuries. So how do you change that up? Well, you can talk about, guys who are coming off the bench and really shining. Or you can talk a little bit about what guys are doing in their rehab right now to get better and get back off the team. So I think it's just a matter of always looking at what you've already reported on and figuring out like, all right, what's next? Because surprisingly too, fans really want to know the next day. Like it's crazy. You can tell someone got sick Monday and on Tuesday, they're like, well, what's the status? And you're just like, still sick, still sick. But sometimes you can say still sick, but they feel this and they feel that. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to realize that you're going to have some of the same storylines. It's just a matter of like the what's next and what's going to happen next. And how can you highlight the other players in the process of it.
I really like that approach. And it kind of ties into what you said earlier about keeping your senses on alert and just seeing what's happening with the players day in and day out. Lastly, what's the most important lesson you've learned throughout your career that you can share with young professionals looking to enter this space?
I have a couple. This is going to sound so cheesy, but it's something that like my mom told me, dream the boldest dreams. Dream the boldest dreams. I can't say that enough. If you dream it, you can go after it. If you continue to just believe in yourself, you can do it. But you have to be able to say yes and work hard. So when I was in Kansas, they were starting to cover the Kansas City Chiefs, but not as much. And I just felt like we should be at those games. And that was Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starter for that team. So they were like, okay, you can drive to those games. So that was about a 3.5-hour drive on Sundays that I would take from Wichita to Kansas City. And I remember telling myself, it's all going to pay off. This is tiring. You're waking up at 6 a.m, leaving at 6 a.m, because at the time, Kansas City wasn't getting any like late games. They were all early games because they weren't that great at the time. So it was like, I was just getting there so early to just do these games, go live, get all this fan experience. And it was the best decision of my life because it just projected my career. It really just helped me, one, realize you can do it. Like you can do it. So say yes to opportunities. Don't be afraid to ask. What's the worst that someone can say no? And that's what I did. I asked my boss, I will drive up to Kansas City to cover this team. Will you let me do it? And she said, yeah. And then we ended up covering this team with an MVP caliber, quarterback, and just that they went to the Super Bowl the next year. Then the year after that, I come to Orlando and I'm covering another Super Bowl with Tom Brady. So it was one of those things where I highly recommend dream the boldest dreams, say yes early, because now I'm in a position where I can kind of be like, no, but I still say yes a lot. I do, but I can kind of pick and choose now where I'm like, okay, I really want to value this time off instead, and then maybe do this. But early on, I was just like, hit the ground running. If I'm coming home at like 3 a.m, it's okay, because like, this is all gonna pay off to get me to a position where I can really just enjoy the life that I'm living and enjoy the work and be able to have my parents enjoy what I do. And then always like just continue to ask, like just ask, can you cover this team? Ask, can you interview this person? Ask, like, again, what's the worst that they can do? They say no. Then you say, okay, cool, keep it pushing. And then you find another avenue and you just ask. That's what I think sometimes we miss, because we get nervous. And believe me, I'm constantly nervous to ask, but what's the worst that can happen? They say no at the moment. And you're like, all right, cool, find another way, pivot, figure it out. So those are the 3 things I would say to young journalists, like wanting to get into the business and project and get their career started.
Yeah, I love that. And one of my favorite pieces of advice is always the worst someone can say is no. You never know unless you ask, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Kendra, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with us tonight. It was very inspiring hearing about your journey from when you got started to now, and really appreciate the valuable advice you share with all of us tonight. So thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys do amazing things in the future. I cannot wait to see what you guys all do. And yeah, thank you.